Good morning. Happy Wednesday. It's hump day. And, woke Wednesday sort of. But I'm going to talk mostly, I'm going to start to talk about a little bit this Kyle Rittenhouse thing. Because yesterday we were talking about the pre-trial things that were going on in that case. Because I think, doesn't that case start Monday? I think it does. And so anyway, they're having their last pre-trial motions and things like that. And the big news, at least on Twitter today, is the notion that the judge in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial says lawyers cannot call the two people he killed victims. And I actually watched some of that pretrial hearing via Rikita and Rikita Law, whatever. And so I that's what I spent this morning listening to while I was working. And I kind of said that. Not during the trial. And there's some good reason for that. And but not during the entire trial. And I'll get to that after the intro, and then we'll get into some other news. Me being, for whatever reason, I've been working later and later every day, and so I barely got here. And but we'll try and get caught up in some news. And actually we're going to go through some trending stuff today, because I noticed a few names trending, and I'm just going to see what that's about. So this is going to be one of those news from Twitter's days, and we'll get through it. Anyway, we'll do that right after the intro. Gianni, play the intro, please. Ladies and gentlemen, coming to you live from the Lucky Dog studio in a hidden location somewhere in the upper Midwest of the United States of America, it's a brother making his own way, but with all the wrong opinions. Welcome to the Morning Night Live with your host, yours truly, Dawg Knight. All right, stop the music. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Morning Night Live. I'm your host, Marty, also known as Dawg Knight on the internet. And welcome back to the Dawg Knight Channel, where we determine whether or not people are victims or perpetrators. And that's something where, boy, the divergence of opinions on this, it's so funny how there are so many people who have no idea what they're talking about regarding this case. And I followed this early on and watched saw the videos and stuff when it happened, those days that it happened. And it's surprising to me that they charged Kyle, but that's kind of how it works. They charge him with murder, and there's so much evidence that just shows that, in my mind, my opinion, it's self-defense. And because he was attacked, he retreated. He was attacked. He was retreated. He was attacked. And it is what it is. Now, should he have been in Wisconsin? Should he have crossed state lines? Should he have had an AR-15? Those issues don't matter as to whether or not it was self-defense. Maybe he shouldn't have been in Kenosha instead of 8 miles away at his home at Antioch, Illinois. Maybe he shouldn't have had an AR-15 or a rifle or whatever it was in his hands, because it's the AR-15, that scary, scary black gun. Maybe he shouldn't have been there helping guard a building, but he was. Does any of that matter? In fact, he drove a shorter distance to be there than any three of the people he shot. In fact, one was from like 60, 70 miles away. Should he have been in Kenosha that night? Does that have any bearing on whether or not this was self-defense or not? No, it has none whatsoever. So, but that's going to be the big topic of the day. Oh my God. The judge says, in fact, here is how how Twitter does it. And Twitter obviously wants to slant this as much as they can, which is, it's what they do. So here's their headline. It's in the What's Happening section. So this is probably going to end. What's interesting is Kyle Rittenhouse is not trending today, but this is from yesterday. Judge in Kyle Rittenhouse trial says lawyers cannot call the 2 people he killed victims. Well, during the trial, the judges decided that that's prejudicial, and the fact that if you're constantly calling them victims during the trial, that would taint the jury. And in order for a defendant who is presumed innocent to get a fair trial, if you're presumed innocent and his trial is his defense is that it was self-defense, by you calling them victims, you are tainting the jury's mind on the idea that these guys did nothing wrong, and that would by call if and you know that the prosecution wants to call them victims as many times as possible, right? So the judge said during the trial, you're not able to call you are not allowed to call them victims. You can call them by their names, and the other part is. He's not restricting them from calling them victims for the entire trial. You can use the word victim in your summary. But the other thing is too, the prosecution made several motions for the last part of the trial and was getting shot down left and right. I know they talked about this yesterday, but we didn't go into great detail. And hopefully I can pull some of these articles up. I have 3 different articles that have, and the reason I pull up 3 is because they're all sources kind of on the same side of the world. But what's interesting is they have, the way they frame them are all a little different. So I want to get into how they frame them a little differently, and that's very interesting. But before we do that today, as usual, I'm going to say good morning, everybody. But first, we have our first sponsor of the day, Baby Vaso.
You are the new Streamlabs Superstar sponsor of the day.
Thank you very much for sponsoring the show via Streamlabs. If you watch the show at pdawgknight.live, here, let me pull this off the screen for a second. If you watch the show at pdawgknight.live, everything's there in one place. The videos, the stream is here, the chat's here, and the donation link is right there, right in one shopping. And then also you can sponsor super chats. Oh, by the way, who was it yesterday? Someone actually did a donation via Cash App, and I'll get to that one in a second too. But anyway, first, Baby Vaso, first sponsor of the day. Thank you, sir. Who says people are complaining that the Marxists have taken over all the institutions, but is that because they are hiring their own disproportionately, or is it because not enough of us are going into those jobs or industries? This seems like a self-inflicted wound. Well, yeah. Think about it. It tends to be. Well, I don't know. I suppose people who are I don't know. Are the people on the left tend to go into certain industries, and people on the right stay out of those? It's kind of like people complaining about the wage gap. If you're going into certain jobs, well, well, first of all, let's take a couple institutions for example. Let's take journalism and education. Okay, we'll take journalism and education. Journalism, there is sort of a vacuum of people in certain parts of journalism, a certain mindset where most of the people think alike. And when you don't think the same way, you tend to be pushed away or snubbed or whatever. And then you end up in journalism. Now there's a kind of split where people can go, because people who can't stand being part of the so-called left-wing media tend to have places they can go in the right-wing media now, which really they didn't have before. But And also, I don't know, are journalists more idealist? I don't know. I don't know why. But then, and you take education too. Well, education is filled with people who have to spend their time going through the indoctrination centers for longer amounts of time, and they, versus the people who are going into finance or computer science or going into other things. I don't know. Maybe it's just, and then also it's funny. A lot more people who move dirt, metal, sand, and trees or plants have become more supporting of the conservative side too, which is interesting because the people who used to move dirt, plants, metal, and trees, or what did I say? Dirt, metal, trees, well, whatever. It seems like those used to be industries that were union heavy, and but it's interesting. I listen to people who happen to be in the union that I belong to because I have to belong to that union because I work where I work. It's interesting to listen to the rank and file union members talk about things and how they're just like, this shit's nuts. So I don't know. It is, as far as it being a self-inflicted wound, sure, I guess. But it's just like, it's what people want to do. It's just like, people choose where they want to work, so how do you fix that? But like I said, people who don't have the same worldviews have different places they can go. So Avocado Stably says it has more to do with worldview. Conservatives don't tend to do journalism. They are typically people who are okay with the status quo, and that doesn't lead one to want to be a journalist. Okay, that's a pretty good take too. So anyway, thank you, Baby Vaso, for sponsoring the show and being a very dedicated sponsor. I appreciate that. All right, let's say good morning, everybody, because I need to get into the show here. Good morning to who was first. Oh, Baby Vaso, you were almost first. Look at that. But the coveted bell. Whoops. What the hell did I do here? Let me fix that. Okay. The coveted bell this morning in the chat goes to Avocados Daily, the Devil's Advocate, who was here first. Thank you for being Johnny on the spot when you got that notification. Also, good morning to Baby Vaso, who was almost first. Good morning, GunFox61, the ever-dedicated administrator of the Dawg Knight Discord server. You'll always find a lot of good news articles and different interesting things over there. Also, good morning, Mike Savage, Blark, and also good morning, Jonathan Peterson, Select a Boy. Yeah, good morning to Zach Osborne. What's happening? Maddie's in the house. Good morning to Attack Alpaca. Tyler F. TC's here. Good morning, Aaron Meredith. Hello, Sora Luna. Nice to have you back. Good morning to Jesse Leon's in the house. Nice to see you. It's Lord Stanhope. What's happening? The Useless Rebel's back. Nice to have you back. Says, hey, nerds. Good morning to, who else is here? Oh, Cannon Hoteps. What's up? And also Kay Shull. Nice to have you all here in the morning. So let's get back into this Kyle Rittenhouse thing. So if you followed this early on during the time it happened, there were all kinds of videos out showing things that were happening around that area. And the defense and the prosecutors all have that video. Although the defense says they have some kind of secret FBI video of Kyle Rittenhouse confronting the first person who was ended in that situation. Brooklyn Dad Snowflakes ate my Twitter last night. Oh, did they? Like, as in, when you say ate your Twitter, you mean like ended it, or just we're just fucking with you? I'm curious about that. Or were they doing some flagging bullshit? Anyway, so there's lots of video, and the prosecution again says they have some secret video that the FBI took saying that Kyle confronted Joseph Rosenbaum first. And now whether he confronted Joseph Rosenbaum first, they say they have Kyle Rittenhouse running at Joseph Rosenbaum, which I'm not really sure what they're talking about. Now, if you know anything about this case, there was Rosenbaum all during this. There's all kinds of video of him making like chest puffing threats, right? That he was gonna beat some people's ass, and he was using the soft version of nigga, white dude. So I'm trying to figure out how you didn't get canceled for that. Anyway, but talking about how he's gonna shoot these guys with their own guns and shit like that. Now, there's no evidence that Kyle Rittenhouse saw any of that, but there's plenty of evidence that he was there to get in some fights and just start some trouble, right? And the prosecution of Kyle Rittenhouse was trying to get that type of evidence thrown because they're saying that there's no way Kyle Rittenhouse could have known, seen, or necessarily, there's no evidence that he witnessed any of that, right? But the judge is like, well, look, that kind of evidence can be used because you see the idea that this guy may be an aggressor is relevant to the case. And there is video of him pushing a burning dumpster towards a gas station. Okay, now there's whatever, and there's video of Kyle Rittenhouse running with a fire extinguisher, and that fire extinguisher. Now we don't know who. We saw Kyle running with the fire extinguisher to that scene, but we don't see exactly who it puts the fire out. But with that, you see Kyle running with a fire extinguisher. All of a sudden, there's a fire extinguisher putting the fire out in the dumpster. And then there's also video of the confrontation between Joseph Rosenbaum, the first person who was shot and killed, with Kyle Rittenhouse and attempting to grab his gun. It's what's nuts is somehow the prosecution is going to try to prove that Kyle Rittenhouse was the aggressor. Now, if you read people talking about it on Twitter, they all think, oh yeah, he went there. He was going to hunt down people. He went there to kill people. He was aggressively attacking them and all this other bullshit, which is obviously is not true because there's video evidence showing otherwise. In each case, he was retreating from Joseph Rosenbaum. Joseph Rosenbaum caught him, had a struggle. They grabbed the gun, and that's when he was shot. It also shows when he was running away from people chasing him and he fell. 3 different people attacked him while he was on the ground. One tried to kick his head through the cement and then tried to take his gun, and that person was shot and killed. Another person went to attack him. He fired a shot away from that man, and that man ran away, did not get killed. Then the 4th person who attacked him. The second guy was a skateboard guy, hit him with a skateboard. The 3rd guy was the guy who ran away just from a warning shot. Then the 4th guy runs at him. He has the rifle pointed at that guy. The guy looks at him, puts his hands up, stops, turn around. Kyle does not shoot him. Then the guy turns around and points his pistol at Kyle. And that's when Kyle shot him. And that's the guy who had his bicep blown off. Amazing trigger discipline, if you ask me. First of all, because the guy is definitely coming at him and he doesn't shoot. The guy puts his arms up. He doesn't shoot. He only shoots when the guy turns back and points a pistol at Kyle. Now, it's clear from the video evidence. The prosecution wants to treat this as though Kyle went there with the intention of killing people, like almost premeditated. Even though they're not using a premeditated, are they doing it first? I can't remember. Now, here's where we're going to look at how this is being the judge's ruling yesterday, how it's being presented in a couple different places. So first on Twitter, Judge in Kyle Rittenhouse trial says lawyers cannot call the two people he killed victims. Kenosha County Circuit Judge Bruce Schroeder ruled on Monday that Kyle Rittenhouse lawyers can refer to the men he shot and killed in Kenosha, Wisconsin in August 2020 as rioters and looters, but prosecutors may not call them victims at any time during the teen's upcoming murder trial, according to the Chicago Tribune. Now, let me make a correction there. The judge did not say that it could not be referred to as victims during the summation. That's not something he would restrict. But during the trial, because here's what would happen over and over and over and over during the trial. In a trial that you're supposed to presume the person who's being defended is presumed innocent, you'd be calling them victim, 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 victim. And if you think of them as victims, then somebody would have had to do them wrong. Now, personally, if that was going to be the case, then I would have to call them perpetrators throughout the trial, which would have been just fine. And there's plenty of video evidence showing that they were perpetrators. These were not good people, by the way. But even the fact that they were not good people is not relevant. What's relevant is, did these people attack Kyle Rittenhouse in such a way that Kyle Rittenhouse feared for his safety? And that's all it has to be. That's all it has to be. And also, did Kyle Rittenhouse do what he could do to remove himself from people who would endanger his safety? Was he retreating? And in all of the cases, before there is a single shot fire, he was retreating. And in two of the cases, people were trying to remove his weapon from his hand, including one who had earlier told him, and there's actually video of this guy telling him that, I'm going to shoot you with your own gun. The same guy who also was pushing the dumpster that was on fire into the street towards a gas station. The same dumpster that was put out by a fire extinguisher that was provided by Kyle Rittenhouse. I couldn't imagine that this guy probably had a little bit of beef with Kyle Rittenhouse when he went to attack him. And in fact, there's also a video of the guy coming out from hiding in between some cars and running at Kyle Rittenhouse, who attempted to retreat. And then the whole story goes from there. Now they're going to continue here, though. So, and this part about the rioters and looters thing. So the way they're framing it on Twitter is, well, they're going to let them call those guys rioters and looters, the defense to call them rioters and looters, but they're not going to allow the prosecution to call them victims. Oh, that's not fair. And that is hilarious because I'm watching this pretrial hearing. The prosecution is just all up in arms. Well, you're going to let them call them victims and looters. Isn't that the same thing? Well, no, that's not exactly what the judge is ruling, and we'll get into that in a second. Now, let me see how, and then they frame the rest of it with the requisite wording that you would have to use to really rile up the people on the left. Rittenhouse, now 18, has pleaded not guilty to the charges and says he acted in self-defense when he fatally shot Joseph Rosenbaum and Anthony Huber and wounded Gage Grosskreutz while patrolling the streets with an AR-15 style rifle. Amid the protests surrounding the shooting of Jacob Blake, a black man, by a white police officer.
You're fucking a white male!
The Tribune reports. Keep it here for the latest. So. Yeah. Good morning, Richo, by the way. Good morning, Rusty Shack. And anyone else? I saw some names. Cracks in the house. Nice to see you. TC already said I got you. All right, cool. So now let's look at how you've got my kind of synopsis. Let's look at how some other news outlets called this. And it's interesting. Obviously, this is Twitter. They can put as much or as little as they want in this statement. But what people are up in arms about is the fact, they can call them rioters and looters, but they can't be called victims. And Kyle Rittenhouse just hunted them down. In fact, let's look at this. Oh, and there's another one. And now they're WISN 12 News out of, where's they from? Wisconsin's ABC affiliate. Who is the judge in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial? Whatever. And Al Jazeera Plus, which is they're way out there left wing outlet. A man wounded by Kyle Rittenhouse called the Kenosha shooting a natural consequence of police allegedly deputizing a white nationalist militia and funneling protesters to them. Holy criminy. That's some bullshit. And that's, first of all, no evidence of the white nationalist militia. He has a lawsuit against, I believe, the city of Kenosha or whatever, stating that he's suing the city of Kenosha, saying that the police deputized these guys that were brought him in to do some security, and that it's their fault that Kyle Rittenhouse shot him. Now, that could bring up some problems for the prosecution, but anyway. And then they go into AJ Plus's, this is how policing in the U.S. is rooted in its history of racism. And then they're talking about the racist origins of U.S. police force. Okay, hang on a second. Wait a minute. Because they're going to talk about slave patrols and all that bitch shit. To enabling the lynching of African Americans. Where was the first police force of the United States? Because they're saying that slave patrols was the origins of police in the United States. Do you know where the first police force in the United States was, and where the concept came from? In fact, the first two police forces, the first one was in Boston, and it was based on a kind of a sheriff system in England. And the second police force in the United States was in New York City. So the idea that the police force's origins were slave patrols. Now, were there slave patrols in the South? Yes, there were. Was policing based on those? It's a bit of a stretch if you actually do some research into the origins of how policing is done in the United States. But anyway, there were some shitty things that those slave patrols obviously did and whatnot. But anyway, so let's look at a couple. Well, let's start with the Washington Post, the Washington Compost. Here it is, their headline: men shot by Kyle Rittenhouse can be called rioters and looters, but not victims, judge rules. Okay, now, again, if you frame it this way, in just only see a headline, and you're predisposed to automatically think Kyle Rittenhouse is a murderer who came across state lines with his weapon of death, AR-15, specifically to shoot black rioters during a riot, then yeah, you might go, hey, what the fuck's this judge doing? If you actually listen to the pretrial hearing, you'd understand it. But boy, they put that headline out there just to make you go, what the fuck, right? It is a good clickbait headline, though, and it seems to be the same exact headline that Twitter used here, pretty much. They didn't add the rioters and looters line. Anyway, so here's the Washington Post. Wisconsin judge ruled Monday that attorneys in the Kyle Rittenhouse murder trial could refer to the teen shot in Kenosha, Wisconsin last year as rioters and looters and arsonists. They could not, however, describe Joseph Rosenbaum and Anthony Huber, who were killed, and Gage Grosskreutz, who was wounded, as victims because the term was loaded, the judge said. The ruling comes ahead of what's expected to be a contentious trial. Rittenhouse, then 17, shot the men in downtown Kenosha on August 25th, 2020, with an AR-15 style rifle. after crossing state lines during the turmoil sparked by the shooting of Jacob Blake. You know, this whole crossing state lines bullshit over and over. Look, it's very simple. Antioch, Illinois is the closest town, almost suburb-esque, but not quite. There's a little bit of empty green space in between the two towns, but they're like 8 miles apart, border to border, 8 miles from each other, from Kenosha, Wisconsin to Antioch, Illinois. And Kyle Rittenhouse worked in Kenosha, Wisconsin as a lifeguard at the YMCA pool or some shit like that, right? The idea that they keep making up this after crossing state lines, making it look like he drove from, like, I don't know, Carbondale, Illinois, which is about 4 hours south of Kenosha. It's not like he was driving from Chicago, or he drove from you know, what are the quad cities? Whatever one of the quad cities are. It's not like he drove 200 miles across state lines. He drove over to the next town where he worked and had friends and knew people and had, you know, it was like, this whole crossing state lines is a complete canard. It's nonsense. Hello, King. How you doing? And in fact, we know that victim, I said victim, the third guy shot, Gage Grosskreutz, he was from New Alice, Wisconsin, an hour north. Kyle drove 10 minutes. He drove an hour. The other two victims also probably lived farther from that part of Kenosha than Kyle Rittenhouse. Also, you know, they make a big deal. Well, he shouldn't have been there. Neither should any of them. There shouldn't have been riots. This was over the Jacob Blake shooting, right? At which not only did the Wisconsin Bureau of Investigation rule as a justified shooting, so did the U.S. Department of Justice. No charges against the police officers who shot Jacob Blake because it was justified. Now, is it sad that Jacob Blake now was going to be in a wheelchair for the rest of his life? Absolutely. But if you're going to make that argument, there was no reason for any of those people to be there burning, you know, rioting, destroying buildings, whatever. There's no reason. There was no reason. So the idea that, well, Kyle shouldn't have been there, neither should any of these assholes. Anyway, the ruling comes ahead what was expected to be a contentious trial. Rittenhouse then shot the man, blah, blah, blah. A black man. The whole thing that they love telling you, as if you didn't know, that the officers shot Jacob Blake, a black man, by Rustin Shesky, a white police officer. Rittenhouse was with fellow armed men who had tasked themselves with patrolling Kenosha streets amid the chaos. Yeah, were they patrolling Kenosha streets? Because Kai was there with a first aid kit and was giving first aid to people too. So kind of a mixed bag, because he even had, there's pictures of him or video of him giving first aid to one of the rioters. Anyway, Circuit Judge Bruce Schroeder laid out the final ground rules before the trial next week. Rittenhouse faces homicide charges in the deaths of Rosenbaum, Huber, and an attempted homicide charge for shooting Grosskreutz. He's also charged with being a minor in possession of a firearm. He has pled guilty or not guilty to all charges, and his attorneys are expected to argue he acted in self-defense. There's video evidence. Schroeder said that while he advised Rittenhouse's team against using pejorative terms to describe the three men shot, such language, now here's where they're getting into the looter, rioter, arsonist thing. He, let's see. Schroeder said while he advised Rittenhouse's team against using pejorative terms to describe the three men shot, such language could be used in their closing arguments. So it's funny because he didn't say that they couldn't use the word victim in the closing arguments either. If evidence shows the men participated in criminal acts. So if evidence shows the men participated in criminal acts. Oh, you mean they have to have evidence before they say it? Interesting. Schroeder said Richards, one of Rittenhouse's attorneys, could demonize them if he wants, if he thinks it will win points with the jury, according to the Chicago Tribune. Yeah. Do you think that's the... Well, anyway. If more than one of them were engaged in arson, rioting, looting, I'm not going to tell the defense you can't call them that, the judge said. So notice how the judge is phrasing this. It's kind of like, well, if you really want to call it that, if you think that'll help with the jury, yeah. And as he was saying this, I'm listening to them talk about this. He wasn't encouraging this at all, and he really kind of was skeptical that that's a good idea. But yeah, in your summation, you can say that, but not really during the trial. I mean, if that's part of your summary, whatever. I'm not going to tell defense you can't call them that, the judge said. Grosskreutz, the lone survivor of the shooting, has not been charged with a crime from that night. Really? Because he was in illegal possession of a firearm, because he's got issues. Schroeder's ground rules reiterated his earlier ruling, in which he stated that the men shot by Rittenhouse could not be called victims because the term was prejudicial towards the teen. But on Monday, the judge also allowed the defense to use terms such as rioters, looters, and arsonists to refer to those men. Wow. Okay, in summation, and also victims allowed in summation. The word victim is a loaded word, Schroeder said. Alleged victim is cousin to it. Although such rulings are not uncommon in trials in which there is a dispute over self-defense, prosecutors suggested the judge was employing a double standard by allowing Rosenbaum, Huber, and Grosskreutz to be called rioters, looters, and arsonists. Oh, but how would you have? Didn't he qualify if he could call them that? They could the defense could call them that. There was some kind of qualifier there. What is it? If evidence shows the men participated in those criminal acts. There is a qualification. Can't just call them that just out of willy-nilly. And there is a reason for that. Again, this is because the person on trial is presumed innocent. And so an innocent person in a self-defense case, probably if they were innocent, they wouldn't have victims now, would they? But if you can produce evidence, which I don't even know that they have evidence to call them that. So why, but that's what, so the judge, because this is from the prosecution's asking these questions, and the defense hasn't made any reference to the idea that they want to call them arsonists, looters, and rioters. But apparently the defense is really worried about that. Or excuse me, the prosecution is really, really worried about that. So anyway, the term... Now, the judge... Okay. Although such rulings are not uncommon in trials in which there's a dispute over self-defense, prosecutors suggest the judge was employing a double standard by allowing Rosenbaum, blah, 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 to be called looters and arsonists, but not victims. Assistant District Attorney Thomas Bigger questioned how Rosenbaum and Huber in particular could be so disparaged given that they would never have a chance to defend himself. Oh my God. And if you'd heard the judge, there was a point where Binger, the prosecutor attorney who's in the pretrial hearing, and he says, he's talking about how they're having a discussion about Grosskreuz's civil lawsuit that he's bringing up, and how if he's brought out as a witness, that could be seen as a an incentive for him to maybe not just fudge the truth a little bit, because there's a monetary incentive to do that. And then bigger, the prosecuting attorney says something to the effect, well, Rosenbaum and Huber won't be able to testify in this trial. The judge had this just enraged look on his face and just said, okay, we're going to move on now. He was not happy with these guys. Anyway, the terms that I'm identifying here, such as rioter, looter, and arsonist, are loaded, if not more loaded than the term victim, Binger said. Well, the so-called people you want to call victims are not the ones who are going to be, are not the ones at trial, right? And they provide evidence. He said, the judge was very particular about this. If you can provide evidence, but in other words, if you can't provide evidence, you better not say it. You can't say it without evidence. You know what I'm saying? Anyway. So, voicemail message for Schroeder in his office. We're not immediately returned Tuesday. Well, yeah, who's going to why should Schroeder even talk to the press? Get the fuck out of here. You know? Schroeder has no obligation to talk to the press, especially about a trial like this. This would not be appropriate for a judge to do. All right. Richard, Rittenhouse's attorney, defended the judge's ruling in a Tuesday email to the Post. It has been this judge's practice to refer to complaining witnesses as just that. Ultimately, the jury will decide after hearing all the evidence if these individuals are in fact victims. Richards wrote, if I refer to someone who is starting fires and threatening people with death as a rioter, that is the correct term. So yeah, if you prevent evidence that they're doing it, then you can call them that. Without evidence, better not call them that. I'm pretty sure the judge would be pretty upset about that. If I am wrong or misusing the terms, the jury will hold me to account. Critics... Okay, wait a minute. This next line's great. Critics, liberals, and activists... Damn, that's redundant. Critics, liberals, and activists have described Rittenhouse as a domestic terrorist who made a bad situation worse. Really? Really? Was there a way to make that situation worse in Kenosha that night? I guess it turned worse thanks to this. But anyway, while conservatives have championed the team as a patriot and a symbol for gun rights in the U.S. Now, here we go again with this bullshit. I've seen a lot of conservatives defending Kyle Rittenhouse, okay, saying that he did what he did in self-defense, right? Yes, when you're the aggressor, you can't be called the victim. Damn right, by the way. You cannot. You're the aggressor. How can you be a victim if you're the aggressor? And that's what even there was a little bit of argument about that during the pretrial stuff too. And that was kind of the point too. If the jury determines that these guys are the aggressors, then they're not the victims. And so if you call them that continually throughout the trial, again, you're saying that they're not aggressors, which they could well be. Now that's for the jury to decide. Anyway, but let me go back to this thing where conservatives have championed the teen as a patriot and a symbol of gun rights in America. No, they haven't. I'm still trying to find someone who's celebrating Kyle Rittenhouse as a patriot and a symbol for gun rights. I've seen people say that he acted in self-defense, and even most people who say that acknowledge that maybe he probably shouldn't have been there. At least a lot do. I do. But I still think he acted in self-defense. The idea that someone invited him to come help defend a friend's business. Okay. But he's a young kid and you worry about that. But a patriot? No one's calling. Who's calling him a okay, let me see here. Let's open a tab. And we're going to open Twitter. And we're going to type in the search Kyle because maybe I'm not seeing it. House Patriot. Let's see. Fuck Kyle Rittenhouse. He's an uneducated terrorist. He's as much a patriot as shit is one of Baskin Robbins' top flavors. I see lots of people mentioning he's not a patriot. Who's described him as a patriot? I've never seen it. Oh, here's one. The Founding Fathers would have been proud of someone like Kyle Rittenhouse, a brave young patriot with the courage to defend himself and his country. That's America, that's freedom. That's why the left is determined to destroy him. They hate everything this country stands for. Who's this guy? Okay, this is someone with 20,000 followers. I don't know this guy. I mean, he follows 17,000 too. I don't know. I don't think of him as a patriot or a he was just a kid who was there trying to help out and got caught up in a really bad situation and got attacked and ended up shooting some people. But he was not the aggressor in this situation. Yeah, no, it's hilarious. This judge needs to be disbarred right now. If you actually listen to the ruling, you'll understand it. So these people are talking about all these people that should be in prison. These people are just insane. Anyway, you can look that up yourself. So I did find one. Okay, so somebody says he's a patriot. I don't think of him as a patriot or a victim or he was out there trying to help and it's got a bad situation. Early this month, Grosskreutz filed a lawsuit against the city and Kenosha County alleging that police deputized, quote, a band of white nationalist vigilantes, end quote, during last year's racial justice protests. Maybe it's because the night before you burned down 7 blocks of businesses. And the police couldn't handle it. Now, whether you agree with the protest or not, a protest generally isn't burning down 7 blocks of businesses. Just saying, boy. Anyway, let's see. The complaint opens with words a law enforcement officer allegedly spoke to Rittenhouse that night. We appreciate you guys. We really do. Woo, man. That's some shit there. I can't believe they would have said something like that. Damn. You appreciate that. Woo. I got to tell you that. Get a rope. I'm saying. Oh my goodness. Anyway, these are the words of Kenosha law enforcement officers, words of encouragement, appreciation, and thanks spoken to Kyle Rittenhouse and a band of white nationalist vigilantes.
You're a lying dog-faced pony shoulder.
The complaint states, it marks the second major legal action against the city and county since 2020. Huber's family filed a lawsuit 2 months ago alleging that the city and its police and county sheriff's departments openly conspired with white militia, which gave them license to wreak havoc and inflict injury. Fascinating. Okay, so let's just analyze that. Let's take it. Let's just break that down for you. So the police and its county sheriff's department openly conspired. Okay? Openly conspired. Out in the open. Called them up. They had many communications with white militia. Now this one says white militia, not white nationalists. Now earlier they said white nationalists. But this says white militia members. were there two different groups there? Because I don't know if those are, unless they're using those terms interchangeably. But this sentence, which gave them license to wreak havoc and inflict injury. I have one little question. How many people other than Kyle Rittenhouse, who just may have been attacked a little bit, a tiny bit, how many other people, either white nationalists or white militia members,
You're fucking a white male!
wreaked havoc and or inflicted injury? Were there others? Were there other people that were shot and killed, or even maimed, wounded, hurt, bloody nose, by the action of the white nationalists or white militia that night? Were there, because if the police and the sheriff's department gave them license, which is the quote I'm quoting here, gave them license to wreak havoc and inflict injury, why weren't they busting ass? How many other people did they break during this time? Because I think for the most part, I think the business they were. This is the second night of rioting in Kenosha, right? Okay, and so the police are overwhelmed, and they see people out here protecting buildings and stuff. So they said, "Oh, hey, we appreciate you. Take care of your own shit, and we'll take care of the shit that you can't take care of." But did any of these people go out there and start busting heads, hitting people with the butts of their guns, start shooting people? Were any other people shot and killed that night? This civil lawsuit gave them license to wreak havoc and inflict injury. Were they busting people all over the place, busting them in their mouths? I don't recall any other lawsuits going on right now. I don't recall any other people dying that night. I don't recall anything except for this case. So anyway, as Richards noted in court this week, the defense is expected to argue that the three men posed a danger on the night the teen shot them. Wow. I don't know how they're. Richards is the defense attorney. The focus of its argument, the defense's argument, is expected to be on Rosenbaum, who Rittenhouse's defense has suggested participated in arson and threatened to kill people. That's fact. That's not, there's no question. There is video evidence of all that. And in fact, I think Rittenhouse was one of those people. But anyway, he did. He absolutely did. There's video evidence. Anyway, so oh gosh. I hope this jury has a brain. The behavior of many people there was lawless, Richard said Monday. According to the Tribune, Mr. Rosenbaum was at the top of that list. Prosecutors decried. Oh, good morning. Hey, good morning, Let's Go Brandon, a.k.a. Renee Mayette, and Patrice Ribley, the official Dawg Knight Live K-pop aficionado. Welcome back. Also, good morning, Jonathan Peterson, and Wikipedia snippet. So now the prosecutors decried what they foresee will be an attempt to sully the reputation of the men who were shot by Rittenhouse. Let's talk about the reputation of the men shot by Rittenhouse, okay? Rosenbaum is a convicted sex offender. Just gotten out of a mental hospital the day before, which the defense will not be bringing up. It's irrelevant. but, well, sort of, because Kyle Rittenhouse would not have known that. But the idea that you're going to sully his character. The second guy was also out on parole, I believe. And the third guy, the third guy, the guy who got shot there, I don't think he's a convicted felon. He was charged with a felony. I think had his charges pleaded down to a misdemeanor. But so let's just say that they're not the greatest people. But guess what? That's all fucking irrelevant. Just saying. They're past at least as zero relevance to this case, to whether or not it was self-defense. And I don't think the the defense is gonna go there. They're gonna go with what they know from that night, what kind of agitation Rosenbaum himself displayed, because there's all kinds of video of his stupid ass running around talking about how he's gonna shoot somebody with their gun, and the video of him pushing the dumpster fire, a literal dumpster fire. It was a dumpster on fire into the street towards a gas station. Now the defense is going to say, oh no, they were trying to make a blockade so the police vehicles could not get through the street. But the dumpster on fire moving towards the gas station probably isn't the coolest thing you want to see in any situation. Dumbass. And again, Kyle Rittenhouse, Rosenbaum pushed the dumpster fire into the street, Rittenhouse providing the fire extinguisher that put that fire out. Do you think Rosenbaum might have been a little pissed off that his beautiful little bonfire was put out by this little shithead that he thought, with the AR-15 and whatever? Do you think that may have chapped Rosenbaum's ass? Now, granted, I'm not going to say that that's going to be even that kind of a statement would be admissible as evidence, but it sure seems likely. I don't know. Anyway, now, so they decried what they foresee will be an attempt to sully the reputation of the men who were shot by Rittenhouse. Yes, Rosenbaum, the sex offender, you're going to sully his reputation. Oh, shit. Anyway, this is an attempt to tell the jury that Mr. Rosenbaum was a bad guy who deserved to die. No. He didn't deserve to die, but he fucked around and found out, didn't he? Anyway, and that's really what's going on here, Your Honor. Binger also requested that Schroeder prohibit the video showing police telling Rittenhouse and his armed comrades that they appreciated their presence on the streets of Kenosha. Binger's the prosecution. I wonder why he wants that left out. You mean because the people who were there were being peaceful even though they were carrying weapons? I don't know. Allowing the video in court would help transform the trial into a referendum on police procedure that night, Binger argued, which is not relevant to the murder charges. Yeah, but I don't know. Schroeder said the video would be allowed, but that he would not allow the defense to argue that the words captured on it reflect the feelings of the police department towards Rittenhouse. I would not let it be used to prove that the entire police presence on that evening appreciated Mr. Rittenhouse's behavior in his presence. The judge said relevance is another matter. While some conservatives celebrated the judge's ruling, others slammed him and wondered what this early ruling would mean for the trial. Jamel Hill, everybody's favorite writer of The Atlantic, contrasted Rittenhouse's case with that of Claudette Colvin, the civil rights pioneer who was arrested for refusing to give up her seat to a white person in Alabama in 1955 and is seeking to have her conviction expunged. What the actual fuck does that have to do with this case? There's no even smidgen of comparison of why. How is that relevant? In fact, because somebody on this morning, the AJ Plus, Al Jazeera Plus, was also talking about how this is, Kyle Rittenhouse shot someone, but Trayvon Martin died. Hey, let's stop comparing case 1, case 2, and case 4 that are 3,000 miles apart from each other in different jurisdictions with different situations, different circumstances, different everything. Stop comparing everything to fucking Trayvon Martin. Not relevant. Not even comparable. You could have a thought about Trayvon Martin and have a completely different thought. In fact, it's possible. Now, I'm not saying that this is how I'm thinking, but let me just tell you, it's possible that you could think that the whole Trayvon Martin case with what's his face, the white Hispanic dude, was a travesty of justice, right? You could believe that was a travesty of justice, and at the same time, you could believe that Kyle Rittenhouse acted in self-defense. Why? Because they're completely different cases with completely different circumstances, with completely different people, with completely different facts patterns. You could absolutely believe those two things. Or you could believe that Trayvon Martin, the guy, what's his face? Whatever his name is, dickhead, white Hispanic dude. You could say that the jury got it right in the Trayvon Martin case and believe that Kyle Rittenhouse is guilty. Because they're completely different situations and fact patterns in different places, different times, different whatever. George Zimmerman, yeah, the Jewish Ecuadorian. Oh, yeah, the judge did reject the prosecutor's expert. Well, sort of. He did, because the prosecutor's expert witness didn't bring any facts. He was just bringing opinions, whereas the expert witness for the defense, they kind of narrowed down what he can talk about too. Basically technical aspects of how long between shots, whatever, this video analyst expertise, but they didn't allow his behavioral analyst expertise. And if he does, then the prosecution can bring in their expert witness. That's a very Reader's Digest version of what happened. Yeah, Jemele Hill, God, good God. You got to go back to 1955. And look, Claudette Colvin's case should be overturned and expunged. But it's like, she goes, only in America does Claudette Colvin have to beg for her record to be expunged for simply wanting to be treated like a human being. Meanwhile, Kyle Rittenhouse, who crossed state lines to murder 2 people, has a sympathetic judge and a faction of people calling him a hero. What the fuck does one case have to do with the other? Nothing. Nothing. In fact, you know what? Hey, Jemele Hill, guess what? Beg for her record to be expunged. Jemele Hill, I absolutely 100% agree with you that Claudette Colvin should have her conviction overturned and expunged. 100%. I am 100% with you. And I believe Kyle Rittenhouse acted in self-defense without calling him a hero. He's not a hero, but he acted in self-defense, period. Okay? We're in agreement, Jemele. This bringing up, this guy did this over here, but oh my God, now you look at Trayvon Martin. Fuck you. Get the fuck out of here. Not, okay, now, I guess I'm going to spend the whole time on Kyle Rittenhouse because I have 2 more articles I want to go through. But I also want to, basically, on these next 2, though, I just want to show you how they frame it a little bit differently than the Washington Post. Okay, so the Washington Post headline, men shot by Kyle Rittenhouse can be called rioters and looters, but not victims, judge rules. And then you have to really, really dig into the story to figure out what the judge meant by that, right? That there has to be evidence in order to say those things about them. But if there's evidence to say those things about them, you can say it. And the judge is not saying whether or not that's a good idea or a bad idea. In fact, the way he was phrasing it in this pretrial hearing is he was kind of hinting that's probably a bad idea, to do that because it's not really relevant. Anyway, good morning, Check Your Logic. So, whatever. So here's how News Freak, yeah, kind of. Here's how Newsweek framed it. Let me, I gotta get that in the screen here. Let's get that just so you get the beautiful Newsweek header there. So here's how Newsweek framed it in their headline. Oh, wow, they changed it. Oh, they must have, okay, well, here they say prosecutors can't call two men, Kyle Rittenhouse, fatally shot victims during the trial, but you can during summation. Prosecutors cannot refer to two men fatally shot by Kyle Rittenhouse in Kenosha, Wisconsin last year as victims in the teenager's upcoming trial. Circuit Judge Bruce Schroeder ruled Monday that the terms victims was off the table, but Kyle Rittenhouse's attorney, when did they update this? Because this is not how this story began. When I pulled it open, it must have refreshed. Anyway, News Freak. That was a Freudian slip. Anyway, term fiction was off the table. Kyle Rittenhouse's attorney could describe the men as rioters and looters if they can produce the evidence. That's the part, okay? That's the part I wanted to do. Before they said anything about rioters, looters, they immediately in the second line, the words, if they can produce the evidence. That is the difference. Whereas it took you a while to find out in the Washington Post, what? They can call them riot and looters, but not victims? And then you got to read down like 4 or 5 paragraphs if they provide it. But by the time you get there, you're still reeling over what? You can call them looters, arsonists, and whatever, rioters, but not victims. That's all you're thinking about until that they did almost gloss it over real quick. Black Hebrew Israelite, thank you for sponsoring the show. And Black Hebrew Israelite, I believe.
You are the new Streamlabs Superstar sponsor of the
day. Thank you very much. Who says, Mr. Rosenbaum said, shoot me, nigga, shoot me. Yes, he did. As the Bible says, ask and you shall receive.
That's right.
You could argue Rittenhouse was doing the Lord's work to pedos.
That's right.
You're trying to get me banned. But that's, you know what? I'm telling you. It's funny. Oh, the other funny thing about this, and this is something Rakita said as I'm listening to his stream from last night, and it's really true. I think part of the reason that the prosecutor really doesn't want to talk about Rosenbaum and Grosskreutz and what's his name? Hunt, Howe, whatever his name is because on any normal day in this world, those three would probably be defendants and not victims. They're shitty people, but that is no bearing on whether or not Kyle Rittenhouse was acting in self-defense. And, and again, I don't think their past it matters as far as, a lot of times, we see even in some of the cases of police shooting shit, people bringing up people's past and whatnot and how shitty of a person they are. But in most cases, it's not relevant to the issue at hand. It's either a good, either a legal procedural incident or it's not. And their past really has nothing to do with it. The only thing that has anything to do with what's happening to those people is what happened during that present time. And, so even in the case of St. George Floyd, his past, as much as a shitty person as he was in the past, the problem was what was happening at that time. And did Derek Chauvin have the situational awareness, which he did not? My personal opinion is where he failed. I think 2 of the charges are bullshit, but the manslaughter charges is because of the situational awareness at the time he's under George Floyd's knee. Now, how did George Floyd get to the ground? Because George Floyd was resisting arrest with police and would not go in the police car. Even when Derek Chauvin was like, well, no, George, we'll turn the air conditioner on. We'll try to make you comfortable in there. But George was, kind of hyped up on whatever he was hyped up on. And wanted to lay down and then they restrained him, but they didn't pay attention. They were there's three of them and no one's watching, paying attention to what's happening to George Floyd. And so it was a case of situational awareness, not murder in my mind, but the lack of situational awareness, letting that guy dying under your feet, and you're not trying to revive him for 8 minutes after you had your knee on his neck, which I personally don't think the knee on his neck killed him, because he wasn't hitting a carotid artery, or however I say that. But anyway, that's a whole other story. But his past doesn't matter. Other than, he's kind of a shitty person in the past. And so are these guys. These are all shitty people. But that's not what self-defense is about. Just the fact that this asshole was a child sex offender. That's kind of just the bonus plan, I guess. I can't believe I said that, but thank you, Black Hebrews Are Light, for sponsoring the show again. So anyway, but I noticed though, in the second paragraph, could describe the men as rioters or looters if they could provide the evidence. First, now that's really different than how the Washington Post was framing the story. If more than one of these people were engaged in arson, rioting, or looting, then I'm not going to tell the defense they can't tell the jury that, Schroeder said during the hearing. Okay. That's happening that day. The judge later added the word victim is loaded, a loaded word. I think that alleged victim is cousin to it. So anyway, that's how they framed it. The right way they tell you that the evidence is what the judge was talking about. Then there's, who is this? JS Online. Who's JS? Well, for whatever reason, it's not showing up, so I'm going to refresh the page. What the hell happened to this page? Are all these sites redoing this? Interesting, because Newsweek's headline, it was in the second line of the story. Well, apparently this JS Online has decided not to keep their story up. Anyway, well, I was going to do a bunch of other news today, but let's I want to see some of the reactions though. Some of these people. Wait, what's here? The advocates that Wikipedia make it menstrual lives matter. The double meaning would send their minds whirling. Oh, good God. What's interesting too is how some of the reactions to this. Now, which one was I looking at when I did this? I was looking at the Al Jazeera one. So AJ Plus, because some of these people, people who are subscribed to Al Jazeera are more likely to respond to Al Jazeera. So these are the people who, think that Kyle Rittenhouse is absolutely a murderer. So here's some of the things. Okay, so this one's, where are you getting the word deputizing from? If a 17-year-old citizen was deputized by an official, that official would be facing charges. Because someone's complaining that the police offered them water bottles and thanked them for being there. Well, and for protecting their own shit. This is the guy, though, that kind of got to me here. About responsibility for choices. Kyle chose to arm himself, chose to travel and involve himself in a volatile environment, then chose to engage. Really? That's fascinating. Joseph Rosenbaum chose to arm himself. He tried to arm himself with Kyle's weapon. Chose to travel. He lived in Kenosha, but he had to travel to the riots and involve himself in a volatile environment. Self-explanatory. And then chose to engage. He engaged Kyle Rittenhouse. Now, he continues talking about Kyle. These choices positioned him to needlessly kill someone. That's kind of weird because how do you know it was needlessly? Not that you want to kill anybody, but needlessly, if someone's attacking you, if someone's who's threatened to shoot you, is trying to take your weapon from you, I'm not sure if that's needlessly. It's unfortunate. And then he says, Kyle is learning he doesn't need to be responsible for poor choices. No, he's not. How is he learning that? He's on trial for murder. You don't think that's being responsible for poor choices? Being in a bad place at a bad time? What are you talking about? He's 18 now. He's on trial for murder. He could go to jail for a very long time if he's convicted. You don't think that's learning? Is that learning to not be responsible for poor choices? Good God. And this guy says, exactly worse. He's being cheered on for those poor choices. Tell me he is going to prison. He hunted down people who disagreed with him. Self-defense, my foot. This is someone who doesn't know a damn thing about this case other than what she's reading from somebody else and has no knowledge of the videos that show a lot of this action. It's incredible. Oh, and I did reply to her. I said, oh, so you hunt down people by running away? Is that how you hunt down people? Because remember, he's running away in all these instances. And Chris, least us forget he crossed state lines with the intent to harm. The cross state lines thing is such a stupid argument. He crossed state lines. So he crossed state lines every day in the summer to go to work. And, oh no, he was taking jobs away from poor downtrodden Wisconsinites. Hello, Jenna Ghost Bear. I found a TYT fan. I see P-Dog. Yeah, these are people responding to Al Jazeera, AJ Plus, which is Al Jazeera's super liberal left wing, whatever. Yeah, poor choices like poor choices like defending his job's property, putting out a literal dumpster fire, heading towards a gas pump, and retreating from hostile rioters until he couldn't do anything but use his gun. He couldn't have stuck his nose into those rioters' businesses, right? Or he shouldn't have. And this, again, he should have stayed in his own state. He's in the city he worked in. And it's irrelevant if he was in his own state. The Grosskreutz should have stayed in his own city, 60 miles away. Kyle traveled less distance than two of the three attackers. That's what I'm going to call them from now on. They're attackers. They're not victims. He lived farther. He lived closer to where he was than two of his three attackers. Are you saying people shouldn't cross borders? Do you feel the same way about the southern border of Texas? State borders are different than international borders. I can't get into Saudi Arabia illegally. Okay, what's that mean? So a couple people realized Kyle was threatened. And some right here, everybody shot pursued him, each with the intent to cause bodily harm. This is all on film, by the way. So the most cut and dry self-defense case I've seen in a while. True. All right. Well, while I intended to do more news, this was very interesting to me today, just how these media outlets are looking at it. Let's see. Anyway, you know what I didn't do? All right, let's do one more real quick. I just want to see, let's see how a right-wing source treats this, and Fox News. Well, I don't know if Fox News is right-wing. Fox News is more lamestream than you would ever admit, especially their news division. here's the Fox. I'll put the Fox one up here too in the tabs. Kyle Rittenhouse case. Prosecutors can't call wounded men victims during upcoming trial. Now that's interesting. Wounded men who I can't call his attackers victims, what I would say. Rittenhouse defense team can describe 3 wounded men. 2 are dead. How do you say wounded, Fox? That's kind of poorly written. As rioters, looters, and arsonists. But looks like they pretty much are using the factually based stuff. The Wisconsin judge laid out the final ground rules of what evidence will be allowed.
Amazon employees earn at least $15 an hour.
Shut the hell up. I don't care what Amazon employees do. Holy shit, that was loud. I'm just scanning this. Okay, there's this just pretty much cut dry fact. You know, again, here it is. So they're using Associated Press words. On Monday, Judge Bruce Schroeder ruled that Rittenhouse's defense team is permitted to describe the 3 wounded men as rioters, looters, and arsonists. The Associated Press reported. In doing so, he was denying a request of Assistant District Attorney Thomas Binger and said those terms would be allowed if the defense can produce evidence. Again, evidence showing that they were. But everyone's basing this on the Chicago Tribune article, which I purposely am not reading today. But anyway, all right, gang, that's going to be it. Thank you so much for coming today, as always. If you haven't done so, punch the like button, like Joseph Rosenbaum tried to punch Kyle Rittenhouse. Punch that like button if you haven't done so already. Also, thanks. Share the stream, morning, day, or night. You can do that hitting the share arrow down there. If you're watching on replay, say hi in the comments section. Tazzy always says hi to me, and I appreciate that so much. There's a couple of these who do when you're not here. Keenan does quite often. And Advocatus Diablo throws a comment in the comment section here, and I appreciate that. Thank you for doing that. And then if you want to sponsor the show, you can do that. The information on sponsoring the show is down below. Oh, before I forget, very important. Let me make sure I did do this right. Hang on here. Oh shoot, where is it? Who did that? It was Brian. I think it was Brian Mattingly who sponsored us through Cash App yesterday. Thank you for doing that. That was the first non-StreamYards non-Streamlabs Super Chat donation. Greatly appreciated. And there's no message with that, but Brian, if you're on, the next time you're on, you can throw a message in the chat and I'll make sure to say hi. Good morning, Gamer Verlaine and Episkipos. Oh, Episkipos. You know, that's going to kill me, 5Z. Anyway, thanks everybody for being here today. I'm here Monday through Friday, 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Central. We'll see you next time tomorrow, FTG Thursday. And I think we are going to do a trail stop stream this weekend. So there you go. Ladies and gentlemen, I got to go. My name's Dawg Knight. And I'm out of here. Bye-bye. Hey, this is Dawg Knight, and thank you for watching today on the Dawg Knight Channel. If you have an observation or remark you'd like to make about this video or my channel, I absolutely welcome you to write it in the comment section down below. I really look forward to hearing from you. And before you go, if you like what you saw but you're not already subscribed, please make sure you hit the subscribe button and definitely click that bell that pops up afterwards so you'll be notified when I post new videos or when we go live. I broadcast my live show, The Morning Night Live, Monday through Friday at 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Central. A special thank you to all the supporters of this channel who share our videos on social media and who make donations through Streamlabs, YouTube, Venmo, and Cash App, which are all linked in the description down below. Thanks again, and until next time, I'm Dawg Knight, and I'm out of here.